All right, we're going to get started. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar where we will be discussing the gradual industry shift away from cookie-based advertising such as display and why you should be super excited about its more accurate alternative, which of course are social media identities. My name is Rashida Boyd. I am a senior marketer here at Unified. And I just want to encourage everyone to type in your questions as I go along in this webinar. We're going to try to get through as many as possible at the end of the presentation. However, if we don't get to your question, we will be continuing this conversation on Twitter. So feel free to follow us. Our handle is @Unified. Or alternatively, you can also email us your questions as well. You can send those inquiries to marketing@unified.com. So as far as what we're going to be covering today, we're going to just give you a quick reminder of what internet cookies are. Then we'll explore some of the key issues and the key flaws we've seen with cookies. Then we'll kind of dive into what social identities are, how they work, and why they're better. Then we'll kind of discuss a little bit about what's been happening in the industry and the trends that we're seeing moving forward. And finally, we'll leave you with some takeaways. So quick things that if you forget absolutely everything I say today, we'll just kind of sum it up for you at the end. So let's get started. What are internet cookies? So in layman's terms, cookies are bits of data that are downloaded whenever a user visits a website. Specifically, it tracks activity like logins, clicks, browser history, things like that. What a lot of folks may not realize is that there's quite a few different types of cookies. Here are just three that we've cherry-picked that just tend to be the most popular. First of which being session cookies, which are only temporary. So as long as that user is surfing that specific website, the cookies are active. And once they navigate away from that site, the cookies are no longer in play. Then you have persistent cookies, which as its name suggests, last a little bit longer, right? So these are cookies that expire either on a specific date or after a specified amount of time. And the last one I'll go over, which is the one that most marketers are very familiar with, are third-party cookies, which belong to a domain that's different from the website the user is actually on. So if you're running a display advertising campaign on a publisher site, for example, the cookies are tied to the advertiser rather than tied to the publisher. And just a fun fact, I personally was kind of curious as to where the term cookie came from. And it's actually something that Unix programmers use. The full term is actually magic cookies. And that's what they use to describe the data that's being collected. Fun fact. Cookies have been around forever, right? They've been around for more than 20 years. Advertisers have spent billions and billions of dollars on advertising leveraging this type of data. So why do we need to reinvent the wheel? Might be a question you're asking. We're going to go through 3 compelling reasons as to why marketers desperately need something better. The first reason is user ambiguity. So to illustrate this, I'll kind of go through an example. So meet Maria. She's happy it's Thursday today. It's almost the weekend. She's surfing the net. Maria lives with her husband and her daughter. They all live in the same household, of course, and they share that laptop. They use the laptop for their prospective interests, which you can see are very different. You got SpongeBob, you got football, you got some amazing red pumps. So unless they're actually logging into their browser under different usernames, which, let's be honest, is not the majority of consumers, you have some consequences as a result. So first, because they're using the same browser and they're using the same computer, all of that information we discussed, so the clicks, the logins, the browser history, all of that activity mingles, right? So in order to differentiate between Maria and her family, cookies have to make assumptions. They have to make educated guesses to determine who is who. And as a result, because these are guesses, these are assumptions, targeting is often inaccurate. So Maria's husband might be getting an ad for some amazing red pumps. Maria might be getting the latest stats, from the NFL game that happened a few months ago, or even worse, maybe the daughter is, getting those same sports updates. So this is a very real possibility when it comes to cookies. And in fact, this was a recent study that was done, released, I believe, in early January. And it was done through the ANA as well as White Apps, and they discovered that up to 37% of web impressions aren't even people. So we're talking ad fraud, we're talking bots here. And this is estimated to cost advertisers as much as $7.2 billion in 2016 alone. And if you want to kind of break that down even more, if you have media with CPMs over $10, it's 30% more likely to be fraudulent. And programmatic ads also kind of are in this category where there's higher bot fraud at about 14% for display ads. And it's even higher for video ads. We're talking 73%. So this is a very real and growing problem. Second reason has to do with single device compatibility. So if we continue along with the same example of Maria and her family, of course we start off with Maria having that one laptop that she shares with her daughter and her husband, but maybe Maria also has her own smartphone. And then maybe the family also has a tablet. Maybe she shares it with her husband. The issue with cookies is that it cannot really track Maria's activity across all of these devices. Cookies will continue to make assumptions, but it really struggles, especially when it comes to mobile. And with 81% of Americans projected to use mobile in 2016, this is, of course, a huge problem. In fact, according to eMarketers, Americans are projected to spend a full hour less on desktop devices each day than their mobile counterparts. Again, just illustrating that as this kind of trend continues, this is going to become more and more of an issue. Third reason, I'm sure everyone is somewhat familiar with, has to do with privacy concerns. The idea that data, their activities being tracked with or without their consent, can have a kind of off-putting sense for a lot of people. So 3 stats to illustrate this. The first one being that 70% of users between the ages of 18 and 49 clear their cookies and browser history regularly. So all of that data that's used for display campaigns is erased per session or every once in a while on a regular cadence. Secondly, 32% of users between the same age range, 18 to 49, actively attempt to avoid advertisers. So this is where, ad blocking software and other sorts of tactics come into play. And lastly, 41% of users don't turn off cookies altogether. So there's no data being collected from these users at all. So that was a little bit of a Debbie Downer, bad news. So let's kind of talk about the bright side of things, which of course have to do with social media identities. First, we'll kind of talk about how it works in general. So it starts off the same, right? Data is still being collected from users, all of those clicks, those logins, app information, et cetera, et cetera. But instead of assumptions being made, they're directly tied to a social media ID. This is your Facebook profile, your Pinterest page, your LinkedIn profile. As a result, targeting that's based off of these social media IDs are also based on authentic attributes, interests, purchase behaviors. These are real human beings. Now we'll kind of get into why they're better. First reason is that the user is generating it themselves, right? They make this decision to go on Facebook or any of the other social media platforms, and they volunteer their information. They volunteer their name. They volunteer, they like certain brands, they like certain videos, they read certain articles, right? So this is something that they're proactively willing to share. And this does two main things. First, it makes the data more accurate. And second, there's much less of a privacy concern if you have the choice of actually, giving up that information. The second reason has to do with cross-device adaptability. So we already went over how cookies have trouble, especially with mobile, tracking the same user across devices. But if you really think about it, if you're like me, you were on Facebook and Instagram today, and whether you log in on your laptop at work or your phone or maybe a tablet at home, it is the same information. It's still the same user account. So that basically makes it much more seamless. Third reason is a biggie for marketers, CRM synergies. So this is the ability to map these social media identities to your CRM list. So these are customers, these are email subscribers, these are prospective customers. And I can't emphasize enough how critical this is for useful marketing analysis and even optimization. And last but not least, it tracks the customer journey. So this is just one example, but if you think about it, what do you do on social? You might read an article. If you're like me, you probably Instagram the sandwich you had for lunch today. You might want to tweet about The Walking Dead and any other programming that you're into. So users are doing this in real time, and we have insight as marketers into all of this information, which is super exciting. So what now? We're going to kind of dive into, sorry about this, we're going to dive into some of the trends that we've seen. And some of the things that have been projected for 2016 and through even 2018. Now, there are many, many things we could have chosen here, but we're just going to go over 5 for today. So in 2015 alone, there was a 41% increase in users blocking ads. I do want to note that this is a worldwide figure, and this is much more prevalent when you're talking about campaigns outside of the United States, but 41% is still quite a formidable number. Second thing is 57% of senior ad buyers cite the inability to measure across devices as a major issue for them. This was actually followed by fraud and ad blocking, which 47% of senior advertising buyers cited as a major issue or roadblock they're coming up against. Now for a bit of good news. First is nearly 80% increase is projected in social media spend over the next 3 years. So we're talking between 2015 and 2018. This is a massive, massive increase. So marketers are already starting to understand and realize the power of social IDs and social media data in general. Just to give you a sense of how that relates to an overall digital ad buying budget, it will be projected to take up about 20% of digital budgets in 2016. And lastly, and this one to me is the most impressive. So 70% of internet users in the US are estimated to be on social in some way, shape, or form in 2016. Just to give you an idea, that's just shy of 60% of the US population. So this is great news for marketers because there's so much opportunity. The more people are on social, the more information you can glean from that, and the more accurate you can make your marketing and your targeting. So now for some general takeaways. One of the things is you might be asking is, how am I going to actually use this? Well, we're going to go over two main ways. First has to do with intelligence, or more specifically, audience intelligence. In contrast to other forms of data or intelligence, such as panel data or survey data, where audience information is usually estimated, or there needs to be some sort of sophisticated calculations to kind of glean the national outlook from a small sample size. Social identities can map out a much more accurate outlook, and that's really because of the sheer breadth and volume of data that's available. I mean, Facebook data alone competes with the New York Stock Exchange in terms of volume. So we're talking massive amounts of real data. Not only that, but intelligence will also give you the ability to fix or adjust targeting, which brings me to the second point here. Social identities help optimize your targeting. And I don't want you to think of this as optimizing social media campaigns only, but you can also use this information to understand how you should be targeting on other marketing channels, your radio campaigns, your television campaigns, etc. And a large portion of this is due to audience shifting, as well as the fact that it's in real time. So a lot of times our clients will find that, the core audience that they started out with, shifts over time. And because of that, social is able to capture that, and they're actually able to apply and adjust to all of their marketing channels instead of only just social. There is one thing that I really want to emphasize here, though. A caveat to properly using social media IDs and data in general is the fact that you will need to ensure that your data is aggregated, normalized, and optimized. So you're going to want to get a handle on that before this can really be as powerful as it could be. All right, so what should you remember if you forget everything else? First, cookies are costing you money. Up to 40% of cookie-based advertising is served to bots, not even human beings. So you're going to want to ensure that your budgets are spent on real people, and you're going to want to make sure that you can increase your ROI. Second thing is social IDs are much more accurate, they're more trackable, more versatile, and in fact, it is arguably the most identity-rich channel available for marketers to date. It can lead to more useful intelligence, which then informs better ROI. And lastly, we've seen time and time again examples of how social identity-based campaigns outperform cookie-based campaigns. Okay, so last but not least, I just wanted to stress, our own personal experience with this. So we've run thousands of campaigns for a lot of different companies, all the way up to Fortune 100 companies, and we've seen a lot of success of this firsthand. In fact, our customers have seen as much as a 40% uplift by leveraging this type of data, coupled with, again, their data being normalized and optimized, in our case, through our proprietary optimization technology. So definitely keep all of these things in mind. If you guys have any questions, we'll just take a few of them now. I think we're pretty good on time. So the first question is there any way to create a master social ID? So I'm assuming this means a master ID across all channels. So the quick answer is no. This is not possible quite yet. However, all of these channels have massive amounts of data, as we kind of went through before. So you have a lot to work with here. And if you are able to aggregate and normalize this data, you're going to still have powerful intelligence to work with. And a lot of the things we work with our customers on is cross-channel intelligence as well. So just make sure you're set up to be able to mine through this information on all the channels that you're advertising on side by side. Okay, next question. Why do cookies have more trouble with mobile? Okay, so this one is an interesting one. It tends to be very technical, but there are a few reasons why cookies have trouble with mobile. I'll just go through a few that are on the top of my head. One that I know of has to do with image pixels and how they don't work as well on phones. So that is a key component of, a key stumbling block, I guess, through as to why cookies are having trouble on phones. Another reason, it actually involves the fact that mobile devices don't have the same type of browser that desktop devices do. And there are a lot of other limitations as well. But if you guys are curious again and you want to know more about the technical implications, feel free to reach out to us and we can give you a more in-depth explanation. Okay, next question. But aren't there fake social IDs out there as well? Yes, of course. So we've all heard of, fake Twitter accounts, etc. But what I will say is you're never going to get to 100%, right? That's pretty unrealistic. However, when you're talking about minimizing the amount of fake IDs or fake traffic, social is the way to go. So it's a much smaller risk that you're taking with social. And on top of that, I don't know if a lot of you remember the big purge that Facebook did last year, where a lot of accounts lost a ton of fans. But these platforms are always continuing to try to identify these types of accounts and are going through regular purges of these fake IDs. So this is something that is definitely front of mind for these networks. And again, because of that, it tends to be a much smaller problem than it would be for cookies. And we'll take one more question. What channels allow for CRM mapping to social right now? Okay, so as far as which ones have that capability, it's really the big three, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's not available for LinkedIn or Pinterest yet. However, they are constantly making updates, and we expect them to roll that out pretty soon, if for no other reason than to be competitive with Facebook and the ones that already have this capability. Okay, so if you have any additional questions, again, we're going to be continuing this conversation on Twitter. So that would be our handle @Unified. Or if you want a little bit more of one-on-one, feel free to email any additional questions to marketing@unified.com. Thanks again. Thank you all for listening, and hopefully you will continue to sign up for Unified webinars as we roll them out. Thanks so much, guys.